The future. You can't always see what's coming, but the decisions you make right now help you build a better one. Do you want a future where technology constrains your business or empowers it? Will you innovate for the sake of it, or innovate so you're closer to your customers? Do you want to be reactive to what's happening or relevant for tomorrow? Will you choose profit over planet, or will you find profit in sustainability? Partner with Capgemini now and unlock the value of technology to transform your business. Capgemini. Get the future you want.
Hello and welcome to the presentation of the 12th edition of the annual World Quality Report. My name is Morten Løvstad and I've been head of Society in Norway for more than 12 years and follow the test and QA market very closely. The market has developed fast from functional testing to more and more digital and business assurance. The goal is to know how you can become more successful in Agile and DevOps, and automation is a part of that. Today, you will meet 4 very experienced and interesting test and QA experts who will take us through the presentation. First, a special welcome to you, Vote from Neste Oil Finland. Thank you for joining and good to see you again. The 3 others have been my colleagues for more than 10 years. Mark Bunen, Global Leader of Digital Assurance and Quality Engineering at Capgemini Group. Maheshwar Kanitkar, Global Digital Assurance and Quality Engineering Sales Leader, Society. Juha Vaitalo, CSO and the Digital Assurance and Testing Practice Lead, Society Finland. From this presentation of the World Quality Report 12th edition, you will learn more about the testing trends and QA trends in 2021. And we will also see how this happens on the ground in Nordic by the SAP test automation story from Neste. This webinar will take approximately 1 hour, including a short Q&A session at the end. Since everyone on this call has been muted, please type your question into your GoToWebinar control panel and we will bring them up during the Q&A session. I really look forward to this webinar and I hope you all will enjoy it. Good luck. I hand over the stage to Mahesh.
Hello everyone, very good morning. Thank you very much for joining the session today. This is the first session of 2021 on World Quality Report. And I will be your host, handling all your questions and concerns. So in GoToWebinar, right side on your control panel, you will see there is a chat option and there are questions. So please feel free to type in your questions. I will take them at the end of the session. If you have any concerns, you can type it in chat box as well. So with that, I'm welcoming Mark Bunen, our global leader at Capgemini Group, to guide us through the 12th edition of World Quality Report. It's in Power Pack session. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Maheshwar, and welcome to everybody. Thanks for joining this session on my behalf. So my name is Mark Bunen, global leader for digital assurance and quality engineering at Capgemini Group, and also very much involved in international connection with organizations around the topic of QA test. And I'm also, for many years, I've been closely involved in the World Quality Report. So I'm really happy to share with you the content and the key findings that we had in this year's report. So let's go to the first slide. I will explain a little bit about the World Quality Report. What is it? This is an annual survey that we do among more than 1,700 organizations worldwide. And these organizations are spread over, not only over the geographies, but also spread over many industries. And the objective is really to get a picture and to get an image of what's happening in the world, how organizations reacting and handling to the changes that are required when it comes to QA and test. And each year we think about the core topics, what are core topics to survey and to check upon. And for this 12th edition, we looked at the following topics. The first one, QA orchestration in Agile DevOps, as Agile and DevOps is becoming the standard for every organization. Secondly, we look to artificial intelligence and machine learning in the space and related to quality assurance. The third topic we covered was test automation. The next topic is around test environments and test data, a recurring topic in all the World Quality Reports. We added a special chapter this year because when we started the survey, it was just at the beginning of the pandemic. So we were very interested to see how COVID and how the pandemic is impacting also the work that organizations are doing around QA testing. And last but not least, we also looked at the efficiency, the cost efficiency, and the spendings around QA tests and the developments in that front. So it's a long report and there's a lot of information because all these areas have their own chapter. And in addition, there are also specific chapters for that focus on the industries. And in this webinar, we will not go through all of them, but we will focus on the first three areas. That is Agile DevOps, orchestration, AI and ML, and we will focus on test automation. So before we go into the details of the report, I think it's good to do a kind of we try to do a kind of a survey and a kind of an interaction with you. So we'd like to do a poll question to check with you on what is driving your IT strategy. So Michael, if we can get a poll, that would be nice. So you have to choose one aspect. Which of the following aspect is important for your IT strategy? So you have to select the most important one. Is that optimizing costs? Is it increasing the velocity of IT? Is it improving software quality? Is it about improving customer satisfaction? Or is it about growing your business? So what is driving your IT strategy the most? And if you are not in the position to define that, what do you think is driving in your organization the IT strategy in the most way? So we give it a couple of minutes and a couple of seconds to check what you as an audience think is most important, and to get a kind of a visual also what is driving your organization. And I think it's always very important to understand these topics. So let's see a couple of minutes. I don't know, Michael, if you already get in the answers, but you can give it a few seconds and then we can go to the...
So Mark, over 45% plus people have voted, so we'll give another few seconds.
A few seconds, thank you. All right. I hope the questions is clear for everybody. And I will also compare the answer to what we saw in the World Quality Report. So you can also then relate to what we see in the World Quality Report. And here's the result. And highest scoring here is improving customer satisfaction. The second area is improving the software quality. And then we come to the other areas, optimizing cost, increasing velocity, and growing business. If I compare to the World Quality Report, there is a kind of a change, and I can also imagine that this has to do with the attendees. What we see in the World Quality Report is comparable with this, is that the high score is improving the customer satisfaction, but the very highest score for the organizations is to increase and to grow the business. That is really scoring high. But secondly, is improving customer satisfaction, and I think this is important that to understand that, because it means this is a very critical role for QA and testing. QA and testing is really the bridge between technology and business, and the QA and testing area has to focus, and was rated by the World Quality Report also as one of the highest objectives that we have among the organizations. So let's dive into the topic of Agile and DevOps and QA orchestration in the first place. So maybe to the next slide, I want to share with you some of the findings we had in the report. And the first area was what is happening with the maturity of QA testing in Agile organizations, and where do we see some challenges in that front. And the outcome of this survey is that these are the percentages of the 1,750 organizations that have said, well, to what degree do they agree with these statements? So on the high end, on the positive end, 2/3 with the Agile and DevOps transformation, they consider that in general the teams are having a right level of testing. They cover everything that is needed. Also, tools and methods seems okay, but if you look at the low end, what are really the challenge on, and I take out the two lowest bars. The really challenging area is at the lowest bar is the speed and efficiency of testing in terms of, especially in terms of cost, but also in terms of speed. So making sure that the testing that is being done in the teams is fast enough and keeps up with the pace of the delivery. And the second area of a major concern, a serious concern, is the requirements. So requirements are still not clearly defined, and it is very common, or for very many teams, they start with the in-sprint developments with an unclarity and an ambiguity around the requirements. And this is, of course, an issue that results in the end also into unexpected results when we deliver a software. But speed and efficiency, we take that out as an area of concern from this, a major area of concern for most of the organizations. So it's also good to look in the World Quality Report what are organizations doing about that. So let's go to the second question. The next slide. Sorry for Michael. What are organizations doing today to speed up testing in Agile and DevOps? And here you see that the top two ones are shifting the testing left, so that is moving testing from the end-to-end validation, the business validation, much more early in the life cycle to the unit level testing and the API level testing. So there's a true focus for many organizations to drive that. Secondly, and not surprisingly, there's a huge effort and focus on automation. And that is understandable because it's also a paradigm, of course, in the Agile DevOps transformation. We can go to the other areas. We see diminishing order. We try to test less during development and focus a little bit more on validating and production. I think that's an important area to consider also for everybody to see how we can reduce the amount of testing that we have to do during the development phase. I will not go through all of them, but I want to focus on the two, the lowest two in this graph. One, but last, is the implementation of quality dashboards that enable continuous quality monitoring. That is only 35% of the organizations is calling this. And this is truly something that I come across with many organizations, and it's really a missed opportunity. Having visibility and transparency on QA testing is important and is critical for everybody. And it's really helping to guide teams and let teams understand what are they doing and how can they improve themselves based on data and not just purely based on opinions of the individuals in the teams. So using data with visibility, both for the product owners as well for the teams, is an important area to look upon. And the second area is the last area that is going really low, and that is really an opportunity to do much faster and much better QA testing, is to look for solutions that help to generate the test artifacts. We have solutions that that can generate test cases, but we also have solutions that can generate test data, and these are very important to look at when you are trying to solve the issue of speed with QA testing in an agile environment. I think it's good to go to the next slide, and there we focus a little bit. What are today the key aspects that organizations embrace to come to a successful Agile DevOps adoption? And the outcome here from the World Quality Report survey is that the majority of organizations is focusing on the technology stack. So they focus on the tools, the implementation of a CI/CD pipeline with automation technology to speed up the whole process of development and delivery into production. The second area is executive support. But the low area, and that is surprising, and it's also a missed opportunity in our opinion, is the focus on skills, the skills that you really need in the teams to be able to work in an agile mode, but also the cultural aspect. And especially if we think about also the culture, not only the culture of working in an agile organization, but also the culture of QA and test in an agile environment. That is a critical area that needs to be looked at more closely. And we understand that what this outcome actually shows is that it is an easy choice to look in the first place at the technology stack, for many organizations, and I understand that, and we understand that. But if you want to do it right, you should do the balance, and you should really look at all these 5 areas that are here. And so there's really work to do on the cultural aspect and the talent and skills aspect here. There are, of course, much more in the World Quality Report around Agile and DevOps, but let's look at what are the recommendations that we give in the World Quality Report, and that's in the next slide. Actually, we have 4 main recommendations. In the first place, probably obvious, it is we have to share the responsibility of QA clearly within and across the teams. So it can't be kept and siloed anymore to a central organization or to a practice or to a chapter. But what really has to happen is enablement of everybody in the teams to be able to drive quality and testing. Secondly, and base connected to that is, of course, that then good practices that are coming up within the teams, but also across teams, they need to be shared. So you need to have a kind of a vehicle by which you can extract best practices from what's happening in the individual teams and make sure that other teams can profit from that. The third area is really building those insightful dashboards. I already talked about that, but having metrics and indicators and data to drive innovation is very helpful. And the last area is focus on the on aspects like security and risk and customer experience with the critical notice, because that is really helping to be very resilient in your organization. This is what I wanted to share around the Agile DevOps orchestration, and I think it's good to have a second poll at this stage, because I think it's really interesting to understand what, in your view, is the biggest concern for QA tests in your environment when you are embracing Agile, when you are implementing your large programs. Is that the level of quality standards or the availability and the usage of quality standards and guidelines for the teams? Is it about the level of test automation? Is it the test environment and test data provisioning? Or is it indeed about those skills and expertise in teams that we saw? Or is the last part, the transparency of qualities, the intelligence dashboards that you have? I'm really interested to see what you think is important for you, and I will also try to connect that a little bit to the outcome of the World Quality Report, because these informations we have in several questions from World Quality Report. We have surveyed these areas, and it's good to check how you are scoring. So Maheshwar, do we already have answers in, or do we need to wait a little bit still?
Yeah, maybe another 20 seconds.
All right, let's give it 20 more seconds to vote. And you can only select one again here, so I can imagine more are important, but please select the most important one to you. The standards, automation, environments and data, or the skills and expertise, or the transparency of quality. Give it a few more seconds, I think. And then let's see what the outcome is. I'm very interested to see what the outcome is. And we have it here on screen. Highest scoring, 32%, test environment and test data. Second one, level of automation. And then followed by the skills and expertise. Then the quality standards. And last is the transparency. Now, if I compare this to the World Quality Report, where we indeed see that the environments and data provisioning is for 46% of the organizations the most important concerning area today. And that is followed by 42% who score on the level of automation. What's also scoring very high is the lack of quality standards. And that is even higher than the QA and skills expertise, with around 41%. And what you typically see that a lot of agile teams, they adopt methods like SAFe or Spotify, but those methods don't give good standards out. So that is really something to consider too. But apparently it's good. And I think compared with the rest of the world, the transparency of quality today is maybe not the biggest concern area, but I want to give you this advice. Please look at that area too, because it is really truly an enabler to drive the right level of orchestration of QA testing in an agile environment. So with that, I think it's good to go back to the presentation and to go back to the next topic. The next topic is automation, and I think it's also good to talk about automation not only in the terminology of digital applications, but also in the terminology of enterprise applications. So I want to hand over to Juha from Finland to talk about test automation in an SAP environment. Over to you, Juha.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Very good, good, interesting stuff you have there. Since we are in Nordic edition of World Quality Report, it's crucially important to address the topic of the fact that we are most of us, or even all, maybe even all, working in the environments where or companies where SAP is in the heart of our IT. So we are actually run by an SAP as a dominative solution, business solution today. This SAP environment faces several demands. Of course, the demand for the Agile and DevOps way of working is there. This environment needs to be integrated to the new way of working, and it's pretty much there. But there is also a kind of a, let's say, opportunity to move to the cloud is there. So S/4HANA coming in creates a kind of a, to my view, a kind of a disruption and discontinuity in the way of you actually operate your IT, because it gives the client an opportunity to actually approach the quality engineering totally different from a totally different aspect, meaning that the old-fashioned way where the ecosystem suppliers were doing their own stuff and operating the environment is old. I think the demand to move to cloud and to S/4HANA is always a transformation of some kind. It's a transformational program, consolidation of applications, minimum. It's a large migration program, very business critical. So it means that our recommendation is for the clients to look for an alternative solution to manage the quality. It means that we actually have few recommendations on this environment. First of all, you need to take the end-to-end automation as an opportunity in a shift left in early stages into the agenda of the program or initiative, whatever is that. Having there a kind of automation approach with the factory approach, shared service that serves the purposes in the build and build phase of the new world. And there, when taking the automation in key role, you need to consider the actual tooling. Tooling will become a key thing in a way that you need to select the right fit to the purpose kind of a tool set and have the managed view on that, how to orchestrate that, and that's something that needs to be considered in the early stages of this large program in a SAP landscape. The third recommendation we have typically advise is take the transformational view on this, meaning that you need to have the solution where you have an approach from the design build to the run phase. Actually, we are aiming for a moment where you have a operational environment where the testing is managed end-to-end as a service, and it supports the actual run phase of the entire IT landscape. So here, I think we have some good experiences actually already today, and here I have today a person that really knows how to do it, telling that to you. And next slide, please. So Wout Boyer from Neste IT will explain you how we did that in Neste. Thank you.
Good morning. So more than 15 content sprints and 400 automated scripts and numerous executions wiser, it's a good time to look back at the time when we started test automation at Neste. At Neste, testing was a significant effort for business. The expectation was and still is that the test effort will only increase due to the ever-increasing release frequencies. S/4HANA is an example of this. Could you please move to the next slide? So, 3 key requirements were at the base of the automation effort: a one-team approach, efficiency, and flexibility. I will go over each of these individually. A one-team approach. Since the people are located in Finland, India, and the Netherlands, it's really important that despite the distance, the people operate as one team. The one team has to build trust with business during the knowledge transfer sessions. For me, the proof of that trust having been built is the difference between the very first KT session and the one for new processes after the very first demo. The first session, one tiny process part was being shared, while after the demo, more or less all the processes in that business area were being requested to be automated. Another key element is to have a bit of fun to build that one team, and that has helped very much in this example. Efficiency. Due to the variation in the number of projects ongoing at a certain time, the service needs to be scalable. Therefore, the service has been split in a run and maintain part as well as a build part. More on that later. When automation is being built, some of the small additions will allow you to do more than just automated functional testing. By simply adding time measurements to the existing scripts and running them at various locations, you can measure and compare the actual user experience at various locations. Typically, the scripts are utilized in regression testing, but why not benefit from them in UAT testing and have manual tests focus on areas that you would otherwise not have time for? In addition to these other uses, automated scripts, we also use these scripts to do technical regression tests on production. And of course, no data will be created or changed in production. Also, the scripts and mini end-to-ends are executed on a daily basis in the lower environments to capture issues before they can end up in production. Users also have the ability to fill out a form to request an execution of a certain automated script. Once a script is created, you could choose to only execute it when the full process has been automated. However, if you mix manual and automated testing and do hybrid execution, it will already bring a significant amount of benefit early on, saving business resources time and reduce time to market. As Johan mentioned, having a tooling platform that is flexible and scalable and available in the cloud allows us to do better management of test activities together with our vendors. Flexibility. When creating automation, you could build a scenario by scenario, or you could build scripts and combine these later. So build building blocks. That way, the building blocks are reusable across several scenarios. If a building block or a script is used in multiple scenarios, you will only have to maintain it once, and the update will be reflected wherever it's used. For knowledge transfer, it is important to use too much time from business. Our aim is to do knowledge transfer sessions only once. By recording this session, 95% of the questions that arise when building the automation can be answered by reviewing the recording. Next slide, please. Test automation at Neste consists of two parts. Those are the blue blocks on the left-hand side. So there is a run and maintain service that takes care of the execution and maintenance of the scripts. And there is a part that is called the content service, which actually creates additional newly automated scripts that then later on will be handed over to the run and maintain service. And that way we have a flexible and scalable build. So if there are small projects, we just increase the number of parallel sprints. Key for this whole service is that run and maintain part, because after all, if you build scripts, you want to make sure that they continue to work and that you keep your value that you've made, that you've invested in before. All the scripts are in a repository that will be used to create regression test sets, but also, as said before, will be used in the daily execution via lights out testing. If you then look next to that, you've got all the green blocks. Those are actual projects that are ongoing, and in those projects, automation is also being built. And then at the bottom, you see the RTMON project, which is a project that's nearing completion. And because of that, it's handing over its scripts that have been built during the project to the run and maintain service so that they will be taken into maintenance and that we can execute there and making sure that they will always work. If you look at the benefits, of course, we have a wider coverage because of automation and the added manual tests. The scripts are reusable and maintainable. We can use them to generate test data that then manual testing can continue with. And of course, we also noticed that the time to market has improved significantly. Next slide, please. In order to prepare for the higher change frequency, we will need to make testing even more efficient. Therefore, we will focus on business impact analysis to be able to reduce the test effort even further by only testing what has actually been changed. Test data management to be less dependent on data refreshes and to make sure GDPR is safeguarded. And service virtualization to further reduce the dependencies between projects. And of course, in the maintenance of the scripts, self-healing scripts would help reduce the maintenance effort significantly. Maheshwar, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Wout. Thanks a lot for all the insights at Neste and a success story. You have done the magic in Neste. Thank you very much for sharing the silver bullet and the secret formula at Neste. Thank you very much. Let's go to the next slide, Michael, and we'll look at what is it all about in artificial intelligence from our survey. So if we look at the inputs we received from audience in the World Quality Report, the top two is over 88% people, the customers, the CIOs globally, they are strongly believing that AI is the place where they would like to invest more in the field of testing. That means testing of AI itself and using AI for testing. So both opportunities are there. They have planned more AI specific POCs to see what can be done in the field of AI for testing activities. If we look at the bottom one, the last one, they are looking at using AI for testing or test execution. That means traditionally, if you're writing your test cases in Selenium, Python, and all those kind of things, definitely worldwide, the community is looking at something new AI features in it, like self-healing and all those kind of things. So definitely that is also worth to look at. Mark already talked about using AI for dashboarding and related things, the smart dashboards. So now let's go to the next slide and have a look at our conclusion, our recommendations from World Quality Report. The most important part is when you are getting ready for AI in testing, definitely the first part is you have to plan your data. You have to see whether your data is there, you have enough and high quality data is in place. So come up with your own plan, the business justification, and as well as the assessment around your data. Focus on higher efficiency and outcomes by means of using AI in the space. Adopt smart ways of learning interfaces gained by AI and implementation of it. AI can be used for managing the knowledge within the team. AI can be used for generating test cases, generating test automation scripts, and also self-healing of it. AI also can be used for generating synthetic test data. So you completely move away from the data masking and all those kind of solutions and have your complete safe synthetic data to be used. And also create your AI test strategy for testing your applications, testing your setup. Look beyond than conventional QA skills. So as we move from traditional manual testing to automation and now AI coming into picture, that means we need new skills in testing world. We need people having AI knowledge, having data science skills like on Python. Those kind of things will be part of your de facto teams in testing. One more thing before I move on to the next is as we move to the testing and seeing AI more use in it, please understand AI is making much more success in the production. At the same time, that AI needs to be tested. If the AI is not well tested, you definitely have impact on your customer trust and your brand value. So testing in the field of AI is much more important than the traditional way of testing. So with that, I would like to hand it over to Mark Binnen. Over to you, Mark, to the next slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Maheshwar. We went through the key topics of the World Quality Report that we selected for this webinar, which are Agile QA orchestration, automation with the example, and the real life story also from Neste, how that worked in Neste and what works there. And Maheshwar touched about on the topic of AI. So I think it's also good in the closing statements to reiterate that if you have questions, please type them in the QA and the Q&A box. Sorry for that. So we also like to handle some of your questions. But I have a few final statements before that, before we go to the questionnaire. So one of the main findings in the World Quality Report this year is that there are indeed growing challenges and also growing expectations from QA. So QA has to focus much more on business performance, business outcomes, customer experience, client experience, and client satisfaction. QA has to really be the enabler to do that. QA has also to be a technological driven function using state-of-the-art technology and fully integrated in the DevOps and the development way of working to make sure that it is efficient and fast enough. And last but not least, we have to look within the QA area at the using smart technology, smart solutions, as Maheshwar just handled when we talked about the topic of AI in for QA test. Before I share with you a blueprint of how we look at QA testing in an agile environment, I think it's good to do a poll with you and to check what have you done to improve QA in testing and what measures work best for you to improve QA and test and to improve the quality of teams. And whether you're agile or in what level of agile, that is irrelevant in this case. But what did you focus on? What worked for you? Is the shift left of quality, so moving testing earlier in the life cycle? Were you successful with a focus on test automation? Brought that you had the most benefit? Did it work for you to implement quality indicators for team and led that to good results? Or was it all about the QA and test enablement and skill enhancement for the engineers, so also for the non-testers in the organization? Or did you already use some smart AI technologies for testing? I'm very curious to see what you as an audience felt was most important for you and what helped you to improve the quality of teams in terms of outcome, in terms of speed, in terms of velocity, in terms of efficiency. Checking with Maheshwar if you already have votes in on this last question. And again, I only give you the option to select one.
Yes. So we'll give some more seconds.
All right, a few more seconds. I hear from Maheshwar. And I can imagine that more are important indeed, that more are successful, but it is also good to see what stands out in the scoring. And there is no good or wrong answer here, so that is also clear. So what is the outcome? Let's see, I'm very curious. Okay, what worked best for most of you is the shift left of quality. So moving QA testing early in the life cycle, more focus on unit testing, API testing, and early in the development stage. And secondly, very high scoring is the focus on test automation. And then the third area is the QA and training and enablement for engineers. So I recognize this. I think this is very comparable with what I see with many organizations. And I think it's very good, of course, that we have focus on the efficiency and focus on the automation. I think the two areas that are scoring low today, also here with the audience, the implementation of quality indicators and implementation of smart AI solutions is really the area to look at now. It's really to look at while you have to continue on the other areas, but these are really the areas where you have to look at now to make sure and to select, okay, what can we do more and how can we even do further improvement of QA testing? Because we also know that the speed by which we have to deliver QA testing, the complexity that is around us in the architecture, and we can only cover it if we move further ahead with and continue to move further ahead with improving QA testing. So that's my recommendation, at least from this survey. Focus also on those areas, quality indicators and AI solutions. I think the final slide that I wanted to share with you is the what out of all the information, not only from the World Quality Report, but also from the best practices that we have seen from many organizations, is what is now a good blueprint of organizing QA in an agile context, and what is helping to achieve the agile quality culture. And it is a model that consists of 5 core components, and at the heart of that is, of course, that in the feature teams, in the Scrum teams, or in the squads, or whatever name you use for that, you ensure that the Agile Quality Engineer is embedded and is part of the teams. And the Agile Quality Engineer will help to have within the team to define the QA strategies, to do behavior-driven development, define the automation, as Wout given an example also how that works in Neste during the development stage, but also doing the validation and the check if all the coverage that is required to meet the requirements and to meet the outcomes is happening. So that is really essential to have. But there are 4 other areas that are also, in our view, equally important, and to what degree you need to have that depend from each other. On the right upper corner, it is the end-to-end quality squad. Because what you will typically see is you have a lot of individual teams who work autonomous, but in the end, there's also a connection and an interaction between all the developments and applications that are being developed and are being changed and updated. And to validate that end-to-end scenario, that customer journey testing, that end-to-end integration testing, and at the real last stage, overarching product testing, you need to have a separate squad and a separate organization in that front. And it is very critical, especially when you touch those change and those flows that are critical, that this organization is there and is helping in the beginning to identify what kind of validations need to be done on that level, and also make sure that teams get the right input. What type of end-to-end validations can be done already during the development stage. Then on the right lower corner, it is specialized tests as a service, and these are typically the non-functional areas, so specialized testing that is required, performance testing, security testing, usability testing, but for which it would be difficult to build up the skills within every team, and it would not make sense to build those skills up within every team. So it is much better to have a separate organization there that can be consumed on demand, and from which on demand each team can get the performance validation, the security validation, and the usability validation. And then on the left side, I start with the lower bottom, and that is the Agile QA support team. This is a very critical organization, a small organization that is really making sure that teams do not have to invent wheels for themselves, but that they get support, that they get strategy, that there is a standard tool stack which would cover 80% of all the automation that would be required. And that is also taking care of the enablement. And on the top, very important for an enterprise, in our view, is also to have a more strategic level, on a more strategic level, an agile quality architect that looks at the innovation, that looks at making sure that we have guidelines within the organizations to drive QA testing. And that is also looking at implementing those dashboards and defining the indicators that are relevant for the organization. So this is a blueprint that works for organizations, and the amount of, let's say, end-to-end squad, or the amount of quality office that is required, that can depend from organization to organization. It depends on the type of applications. It depends on your architecture, and it also depends whether you have an agile quality orchestration for the full enterprise, or whether you do that per domain. And that also depends on how much connected are domains, or how much individual are the various business domains that you have in your organization. So this is a model I wanted to share with you. It's not in the World Quality Report, but it's based on let's say, our overarching understanding and exchange that we have had with the organization. And we are really happy to discuss it also with you, how it can help your organization to drive QA testing. So with that, I think we end the content. I think it's good, Maheshwar, to look at, do we have some questions for the team here?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mark. So we have received some questions, but I would request audience, please feel free to type in your questions in the question tab so that we can take more questions from you. So Mark, the first question I have is the scriptless automation is the future for the Agile DevOps space?
Yes. Well, yes and no. Scriptless automation is of course critical and important because it allows also in a good way the non-technical experts to build up and to drive the automation. So we see let's say the adoption of scriptless automation and the growth of scriptless automation in higher and higher levels, and it's really helping, especially to do the automation of those end-to-end scenarios. But in addition to that, you will always have also the lower level, the API level of automation, which is also very critical, for which scripted automation is still very much useful. And I think whatever level of automation, there must be more than just scriptless automation. So scriptless automation is for sure a growing area, but it's not the only area that we need to focus on. We also need to focus on those areas like really implementing AI technologies and generation technologies in the QA testing space.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So may we have Wout on the call? Wout, here is a question for you.
Sure.
So the question is, you talked about creating functional test cases and automation out of it. So did you use any tool for it? And the biggest concern we have is how do we maintain these test cases and test scripts? Because there is a lot of manual work and business users don't do it. So how you have managed it in Neste?
So yes, we use several tools, to be honest, but we can schedule a full end-to-end, even though we have separate applications done in separate scripts because there was a certain need. The main tool we use is HP UFT, and that is our preferred tool as well. And as for the maintenance, we've set up that run and maintain service that takes care of the maintenance of those scripts so that all the scripts that are in the repository will be maintained throughout the application's lifecycle.
Okay, and then there is a second question about is how do you see light out operations of testing? That is something in SAP world is very important nowadays. So how that has been implemented? What are the first few things people should keep it in mind before they get into light out kind of things?
I think you should somehow create a set that's executed that shows that the majority of your processes are up and running and that they continue functioning, and execute those in the lower environment so that you catch things before they can actually do harm.
Okay, thank you, Wout. So we have some more questions for Wout, and both of you can answer this question. We keep talking about SAP testing, and in my organization, what should be my first step? How do I approach SAP testing? Because there are a lot of people who say SAP itself coming with tested, and then we see a lot of concerns and challenges in the quality. So how should we get started when it comes to SAP testing?
Well, what we do typically is we do these test assessment assignments, which are a few weeks assignments together with client, where we look at the landscape that the client has. Maybe they have some tools in-house, maybe some tools in use, maybe some tools that never been used, or maybe failures in automation. And now we look at their development roadmap, possible plans that they have for further development, and then we come up with the recommendation, mutually view on what's the QA approach that they should take, and what is the tooling. Let's say typically it's a hybrid tooling with RPA, commercial tooling, and open source tooling set that supports the transformation. And this is pretty typically, so we are taking away those pain points of the client because they don't really know what are the tooling alternatives and how to get started. So we help them with this few week study. That's been very powerful so far.
Okay, thank you very much, Iva. And then, Wout, I have one more question for you is how do you ensure end-to-end quality? What is your philosophy around it?
That is making sure that you can automate those processes end-to-end, even though they are in different tools maybe, making sure that you've got one central point to review the results and run them at a lower environment at a high frequency, making sure that your scripts are always running and functioning.
Okay, thank you, Wout. So Mark, I do have again questions coming on test automation. The first one is around, would you please give some examples of how do you use AI for testing or test automation? So what kind of use case you see for AI and testing?
Okay, so for AI testing, let's say the most common use case that we now see in the world is using AI for decision making. So using AI for decision making on what areas to focus on, what tests to automate, what tests to select if you have an existing test set. And that is typically built in those in a dashboard where you look at historical data and where you do use smart analytics to define and help you with guidance on defining what needs to happen. The second area where we see AI is more or less in the self-repairing or self-healing solutions. So that is there are already AI-like solutions for that create intelligence into automation by, for instance, automatic object recognition and that kind of stuff to make an automation suite much more resilient to change. But the real AI is coming in areas where we develop really self-running systems. So, and I've already seen examples where the organizations are building solutions that help to automatically recognize if a change is made in an application or a new feature is added or a feature is changed, what type of tests should be run, what type of test should be scheduled. And it's not giving it advice, but it's really automatically scheduling that in the full CI/CD process. And in the end, this is moving into the area of completely self-running and autonomous test solutions, and that is really a future area. And then a supporting area where we see AI really, where AI already exists, is for the generation part. So, for instance, we developed within Sogeti, an AI-driven accelerator for generating test data. And we talked a little bit in the beginning about the topic of test environment and test data, and also with the audience, this was a huge area of concern, and we recognize that also. So getting data for teams is taking typically 40% of their time. So what we have done, we have developed a solution that can look at a sample of the real data, use AI algorithms, and out of that generate test data that is completely synthetic, but has the same characteristics as your production data. And so AI solutions for generating, and that will be self-learning on generating, but also self-learning on self-healing in the automation solution. That is really the future where we see AI coming. But for most, as I said, it is today at the smart analytics, and that is a good first step to start with AI. So a long answer, sorry for that, Mahesh, but I hope I covered it.
And there is a follow-up question on that. So you have better traction. What AI ML skills are required for testers? what they should learn?
Sorry. What I should learn, what the skills, and the most important skills today for AI is the data analytical skills. That is the starting point. So we need to have, and it is, I think, not only true, but especially true for the QA test people, we need to have data analytical skills, understanding what is the data, how can the data combination or data algorithms help us to make decisions on what to test, what to automate, or when we are ready with testing. That is the first start. And then the real development of an AI solution that really requires AI knowledge about the algorithms and the systems that are out there, but also the tools like Python and that kind of stuff by which you can develop the solution. But it starts with data analytics.
Okay, and then I have a question for you. Thank you, Mark. The question is, what is important that it should be in place before you get started on scriptless automation?
Sorry, who was the question, Mesh? Oh, for you, yeah.
Yeah, it's a question for you. So what is it should be there in place to start the scriptless automation?
Well, of course, the tooling as such. I mean, I think the knowledge of the tooling itself. I think there is some belief that the tooling scriptless automation is something that business can do as such. I haven't fortunately seen a environment where this has been the case. You need always a key supplier or your trusted partner to take the tooling forward. As mentioned, the lower level automation needs to be there anyhow. So in a way, in order to have the managed level or securing of assets and operative model on automation, it's seldom that it succeeds without having a partner relation with the company that is specialized on this area, with the respect that the scripted automation provides an opportunity for the key business users or business users also do automation as one of the team members. That's my view. Would you like to add something, Wout? Any remarks on this?
Not really. Making sure in advance that those tools actually work. We sometimes ran into a situation where one tool did not work, and then we had to find another one. And it's good always to verify that that's started.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one additional comment because I understand. I also saw it in the World Quality Report. There is a huge focus on automation and automation technology, and we understand that. But I think to make a really success out of automation, whatever tool and technology you choose, you also need to have a good strategy. You need to know what needs to be automated and why does it need to be automated, and how do you cut and slice and dice your test activities in order to make sure that whatever you build in automation is really reusable and resilient also for change. So it is good to look at the technology, but it's even also more important to look at the strategy and the skills that are required to define that. That is what I wanted to add.
Okay, may I have Morten also on the video, please? And this is all about, we're coming to the top of the hour now. So before we close, I would like each one of you to give one thought for testing leaders for 2021, each one of you, and then we will go for closing. So over to you, Wout.
Start using automation as soon as you can and make use of the data that you have in the tools, because it can be a lot of benefit in justifying, but also in showing that you actually contribute and that you do savings.
Okay, Johan?
Well, select the transformational view to automation, and don't look at only the build phase of your environment. Look at the run phase as well. So have a model and a partner model or organization established, internal, external, that supports the build to the run, because of all the assets created in the build phase are actually available for the run phase, and etc. Like we have in the case of Neste. I think it's beautiful because it's question of the ownership of the assets in the end of the day.
Thank you, Yuva. Mark?
Yeah, for me, it is really define and implement the indicators that drive quality. So make sure that you have an understanding what is important for us as an organization, what is important for my teams, so that they can learn and improve themselves based on data information. So think about the indicators that are relevant for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Wout, Yuva, Mark, for joining this session. Before we sign off, I would like to have Morten to have closing comments. Over to you, Morten.
Yeah, thank you for joining, everybody, and please reach out to Society Capgemini for discussion, meetings, and go in depth on certain topics from this report and findings. I think we can share a lot of experience from a lot of implementation we have done over the last year with Agile, and make sure you have a focus on the quality in the organization, and we will help you utilize the expertise worldwide. So hope to see you soon again. Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you very much, and have a great day. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.